Just start talking.
I would like to call the meeting to order of the UDC. It's 6:30 on October. What day is it? October 14, 2015.
Wednesday.
First, can we start with the roll call?
Mr. Sawhill.
Here.
Ms. Sullivan.
Here.
Ms. Emerton.
Here.
Mr. Winchester.
Here.
Ms. Ream. Here. Mr. Condon.
Here.
Mr. Leonetti.
Here.
Mr. Miller.
Here.
Thank you.
I would like to announce that we have a quorum this evening. Next in the agenda, we have the minutes. Can we get a motion to approve the minutes? Okay, we have a motion to approve by Monica Emerton and a second by Commissioner Leonetti. Next, we're moving to disclosures. Are there any corrections to the minutes or objections? No? Okay, Nicole?
We were on disclosures.
Oh, okay, sorry. We were in disclosures. So do there's any corrections to the minutes? No? Objections? No? Okay, we move forward to disclosures. Do we have any disclosures? Okay, Commissioner Rem?
Yes, I wasn't here for case 2015-015, so I'll be abstaining from the consent agenda.
And are there any disclosures? Okay, Commissioner Joe Miller?
Thank you. In the case of 2015-008, which is the Alaska Zoo, a colleague of mine is doing the stream restoration project currently at the zoo. So I don't have any specific role in that, but my company is doing that project.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Miller. Just to announce, the zoo project is going to be postponed, so if there's any people in the public, you guys can leave, and there'll be probably another hearing November 18. You'll receive a notice. Okay. Commissioner Joe, do you have any financial interest?
No, I don't.
Thank you. Okay, Commissioner Sawhill?
I guess, Commissioner Miller, so it's my understanding your firm is working on the stream restoration, the firm you work at?
That's correct.
I would consider that a conflict of interest.
Okay.
I don't see how you can vote against your firm, even though you personally haven't worked on it. So, in general, in the past, when the firm we're employed at comes before us, we abstain from action. So,
And I'm happy to do that. This case doesn't specifically address that project.
right.
So I'm open to suggestions on whether I should abstain or not.
I guess one of the things that's important to us is the appearance of conflicts, and we want to make sure that we have a clean record and high standards in that regard. So I think in this case it's postponed tonight, so we're not going to act on it, but when it does come back, we can do this all over again. So,
And the suggestion is to abstain for that?
yeah.
Okay.
Great. Thanks. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay. Okay. So now we are moving to the 1% art review. And just to avoid any conflict of interest, I'm involved with the project, so I'm going to pass the gavel to the Vice Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And the way I understand the process is typically we have a presentation from staff or the curator, and I don't see anybody here. So do we have a presentation from staff?
Yes, Mr. Chair. This is being sent to you requesting comments on the, and there are samples of proposed artwork. For example, on page 3, the artwork is proposed to be placed on the main entrance that is shown on page 6 of the packet. And the artwork on page 4 is going to be is proposed for the book drop that is shown on page 7 of the packet. There is just a request for your comments. The contract has been awarded to Nanak Design, and Holly Nordlum is the designer for that is provided these sample drawings. And there's on the first page that was included in the packet is a request for comments from the Urban Design Commission on what they would like to see, or any comments or suggestions for artwork for the library.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any questions for staff from the commission? I had one. It's not clear to me the attachment methods or any details of that nature, and I guess if clearly you don't have that, and if
I was given a little bit of information today.
Perfect.
To pass on to you. On page 8, they provided samples of a perforated image design that will be used. These are not, of course, the images that are going to be used on the museum, but is the type of images that they are proposing with the perforated punching holes in metal to create the design. And that's about the extent of my knowledge of this particular document.
Okay, thank you. So if there's no other questions, then I'd like to ask for a motion to accept by the commission. Thank you. We have a motion by Ms. Emerton and seconded by Mr. Condon. And I don't know that we need to speak to these, but so, or if anybody is in opposition, we will vote. But seeing that nobody has any comments and no opposition, it will just go as accepted. And that closes that. So I will pass it back to Ms. Sullivan. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Leonetti. Next, we move to the approval of the consent agenda. Can we get a motion to approve the consent agenda? We have a motion by Commissioner Leonetti and a second by Commissioner Winchester. Does anyone want to pull the consent agenda? No? Okay. The consent agenda has been approved. Okay, now we are moving into the public hearings. The first public hearing is going to get postponed by request, just like early in the evening, the Sioux request to postpone the project. Can I get a motion to postpone the project to November 18? I have a motion by Commissioner Sawhill and a second by Commissioner Rem.
Madam Chair,
Yes?
I move to postpone case 2015-0088 to the November 18th hearing. I don't have any additional comments. It was requested by the petitioner, and we'd like to accommodate that request.
Thank you. Do you have any comments, Commissioner Nicole Rem?
No, thanks.
Okay, the case is being postponed for the November 18 public hearing. Our second case, yes. I would like just fast to read the procedure. The procedure by which the public may speak to the Urban Design Commission at its meeting is, after the staff presentation is completed on public hearing items, the chair will ask for public testimony on the issue. Persons who wish to testify will follow the time limits established in the Urban Design Commission Rules of Procedure. Petitioners, 10 minutes. Representatives of groups, 5 minutes. Individuals, 3 minutes. When your testimony is complete, you may be asked questions by the Commission. You may only testify once on any issue unless questioned by a Commissioner.
Can you wait until you're called on?
An individual may have appeal rights relating to any action to the Urban Design Commission takes, except Commission recommendations to the Assembly which are not appealable. Appeals must be filed with the Clerk's office within 20 days after approval by the Urban Design Commission of the resolution, which is the Commission's final decision. A fee for the appeal is required at the time of filing. So we'll move with case 2015-0094. The petitioner is Anchorage Pacific Associates LCC, Major Site Plan Review per AMC 2103-180 for multifamily residential development, Bella Terra Apartments. Do we have a staff report?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to point the Commission to some late comments received this afternoon that were laid on the table for the Commission. So just to point out the late comments laid on the table, they're in regards to concern about drainage from this property, I think, into neighboring properties or rights of way. But those comments are laid on the table tonight. Also, this case is a little bit different than previous major site plan reviews that the Commission has reviewed, in the sense that the review that staff did for this project was based on the Assembly ordinance that was passed last night by the Assembly. Staff reviewed the applicant's site plan and application against the public hearing draft of this, which was approved last night, with 4 changes that don't conflict with the, don't change anything about the review. The proposed development will consist of 4 8-plexes on a piece of property that has 2¼ acres. The department finds that the approval criteria is met, subject to conditions of approval. Staff's recommending approval of this major site plan review, subject to conditions 1 through 16 on pages 17 and 18 of your packet. I would like to explain some of the conditions of approval and make 2 changes. I'd like to begin by explaining the changes. Condition 15 should be deleted from the department recommendation. That condition of approval is not needed. That's 15. Please delete that. And then condition number 11. That should be the reference should be for K visible front entries instead of M site entry feature. It should be 6 period K period instead of the M, and then it's visible front entries. So that's the change. Those are the 2 changes. Now, conditions 1 and 2 on page 17 of your packet are standard conditions of approval. Condition 3, street maintenance requested that we note on the site plan that the internal driveway will be privately maintained. Condition 4, verify private open space requirement is met. So the private open space requirement is met easily on this site, but in the calculations that they did on the site plan, they mistakenly included, I don't know, like 5 square foot area or whatever that needs to be excluded from that number. It's because it's perimeter parking lot landscaping can't be counted towards your private open space requirement. Condition 5 is alternative snow management. The applicant has stated that they're going to haul snow, and so they need to record an agreement for that, and this condition covers that issue. Condition 6, change in paving materials. There are 2 walkways that cross through parking areas. That is pedestrian walkways that cross through the parking lot, and they have to have a change in paving material. They've already striped and demarked the crosswalk, but they also need to have a change in paving material, and that this condition satisfies that or deals with that. The site plan needs to show wheel stops. That's a requirement in condition number 7. Condition 8, the intent of the applicant is to provide 60 parking spaces, but the landscape plan mistakenly showed 2 extra parking spaces. So we just want to revise the landscape plan to match the site plan. Condition 9, revise the elevation sheets to show compliance with windows facing the street. Some of the buildings easily exceed the standard for windows and primary entrances, so it's easily met. But again, just like with the landscaping, the private open space landscaping, the calculation mistakenly did not include the gables of the building. So once you factor that in, the number would change slightly. However, this requirement would still be met. Let's see. Condition 10. Let's see, transparency, choose the menu option. There were sort of three menu choices where windows were chosen, and the same issue kept coming up. That's, I think, 10, 11, and 12. See, site entry feature. Oh, no, it was 10, 11, and 13. Conditions of approval 10, 11, and 13. Now, 12, this condition of approval speaks to... they stated in the application that for their site entry feature, they would show a fence, a decorative split-faced fence along the front of the site, and but then it wasn't drawn on the plan, and so we asked that be added, and also the purpose of, I guess, calling out the site entry, the purpose of this standard of approval, standard within the code is to highlight the site entrance. And so for that, the fence will have to have some sort of, bollard, or the last bit of the fence is going to have to be a little bit different than the others, so you know that that's where the entryway is. That's how this standard is intended. Condition 14, provide heated sidewalks from primary front entrances to East 4th Avenue. So they've selected a menu choice of ice-free walkways. They have many menu choices from which to choose from, but this one, they're required to do ice-free walkways from the primary entrances of the buildings, even if there are multiple entryways, to the property line. And what they've shown on the site plan is to do this for 7 or 8 parking spaces directly in front of these primary entrances. So it needs to be extended beyond where they've taken that ice-free walkway. It needs to go out to the property boundary. And we deleted 15. Condition 16 has to do with landscaping, that is installing, providing 5 foot of a 5 foot planting bed between the building and drive aisles or parking lots. And there are 2 buildings where it's a little less than 5 feet, and then within that planting area, they're required to do 10 shrubs for every 20 linear feet. They can substitute trees for shrubs in the ratios like 5 to 1 or something like that. But I hope that brief explanation of the conditions of approval will help the Commission. I'll be happy to answer questions. The applicant is here, and also there's a member of the public that I think would like to speak to their comments. Thank you.
You're welcome. Does anyone have any questions for the staff? Commissioner Condon?
Yeah, these conditions 9, 10, 11, and 13, those all have to do with the 20% fenestration in the facade?
That's right.
There was some miscalculation because of the gable ends, but are they within the 20% even if they factor in the gable ends?
Through the chair, Mr. Condon, thanks for the question. I sort of glossed over and wasn't specific. So each one of the standards deals with windows on primary entrances and street-facing elevations, but each one of those requirements is a little bit different. The first one requires 15% windows or primary entrance doors on these sides of the building, but you're also allowed to. There's some exceptions where you can take that window area and take it to other elevations. So they need to include the gables, and for one of their buildings, they have 22 point something, and so that'll lower it a little bit, but they should still exceed the 15% required. For just one of the elevations of the building, building number 4, it's the end side of the building is facing the street, and that one, they will have to increase their window area above what they've currently shown. And they may be able to speak to that. Now, the other 2 were a little bit different. They were menu choices, and they selected windows again, and we believe that they can meet those requirements with the changes that we talked about, that I mentioned. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Okay, Commissioner Sahel?
Thank you, Madam Chair. On page 14 of the packet, and it's the item at the top, II, dwelling unit shall be oriented toward the street. And then you're suggesting that building 3 could be oriented to the street by making the fire exit to the south of primary entrance. The rest of the units are oriented internally, and that's okay? Is that correct? That's not a problem, having those oriented internally?
Yes, that's correct. All of the buildings are their primary entrances comply with the approval criteria and all the standards in residential design standards menus. Except for the south-facing elevation of Building 3, which is currently a fire exit, would have to be converted to a regular entryway in order to meet this standard.
Okay. And which condition of approval reflects that requirement to change Buildings 3 orientation to the street? Is that number 11?
The issue comes up in several different places, and I tried not to be duplicative in the conditions, and so I consolidated conditions of approval and thought that would make it easier. Perhaps I wouldn't waste the commission's time. I could request to speak after I discover whether or not 11
Covers that? Yeah.
covers that requirement.
Okay,
Sorry.
thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Linetti?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a fundamental question. Process. Petitioner sends in a project, and the intention of that initial submittal is that it meets code, correct? That's the purpose of the submittal. Here's a project that meets code. Your job is to figure out and to confirm that it does or does not, and then identify for us if it does or does not. Is that correct?
That's correct.
It seems like this case has a tremendous amount of issues that are like non-starters. It's like this is the second case that we've seen that's a multifamily that's on a single lot with multiple buildings, and it seems like that the petitioner or the project or in some fashion has had a complicated time in trying to figure out how to comply with the code. And what is before us now is 15 conditions of approval to basically comply with the code, which is what they were supposed to do the first time they submitted it. So it feels like we're just kicking the can down the road. Are you comfortable with kicking the can again down the road with a bunch of conditions that they still need to comply with? I mean, their first shot was to submit it to code, and it hasn't.
Through the chair, Mr. Leonetti, I guess I don't agree with the characterization of the situation. When the applicant submitted an application stating that they met the standards of approval, and after the staff review of this, we discovered that the case that the application does meet the standards of approval, but they need to we need to verify some numbers, they need to change some things, maybe select some different menu choices. But I've spoken with the petitioner, and we've worked collaboratively. We're in agreement that this is a good project and that it does meet the standards of approval, perhaps with some minor changes, but they're not deal breakers. There's no deal breakers in this. This project will proceed and be in full compliance with the Title 21 requirements. I think that the first few cases that we see that come under the new code may have some of these issues that we have to work through. The problem is that staff does not review the entire case before accepting the case so that we would reject it. We basically accept an application that has a narrative and the proper plan stating that it meets the standards, and then we review it. This actually takes quite a bit of work to review each of these things.
Right, I agree.
And so I would say that this is the normal way of things, but your point's well taken that the first run through this new code and these standards, which have recently changed,
right,
will uncover issues. And I know that the Commission has seen new code submittals 2 or 3 times before, at least twice with me, but it's the applicants maybe first run through it. Mm-hmm. And so I think that they're doing their best to comply with code, and they have they're not they've been forthright above board, mm-hmm, with they've expressed a full intent to comply with the standards. They haven't argued any of these points with us.
Okay, thanks. And I guess the issues that, or the conditions that are somewhat frustrating are like the provide or choose different menu options, X, Y, and Z, like 11, or like 7. 7, provide wheel stops. Okay, that's easy. I mean, that's like, doesn't seem like a deal breaker, but as soon as you start going down other menu options and do X, Y, and Z, it seems like it's just kind of opening up the can of worms, or not can of worms, but the discussion to do whatever they want to choose, and I thought that was the purpose of coming before us, to present what they want to choose, and then we understand what they're doing, and then we approve what they're doing instead of picking something else after it's approved.
Yeah, I mean, ideally we'd have like a perfect project that we could say everything was met, but often there are conditions of approval to resolve with staff after the fact.
Mm-hmm.
I think that this is in line with that. I don't have any problem. The commission, of course, has the latitude to postpone a case or to require them to return. Staff is recommending approval for this case subject to these conditions if the commission is willing to allow us to resolve these after the fact. Staff didn't want to hold up an important project. This would be a really high quality upgrade for residential development in East Anchorage, of which an area I live, and the adding the phrase "or choose another menu choice" was because at the time that staff crafted this or drafted this report, it was in somewhat of a vacuum. I wrote the report, I was reviewed, and it was signed. And then after the fact, we worked with the petitioner to see if any of these conditions of approval would cause them problems. And sort of on the margins, they've said that increasing the glazing and window area, that can be met. These are not these changes are doable. And then the reason for the phrase "or choose another menu item," that was to give them the maximum flexibility to, if they felt that there was a deal breaker or something that they didn't want to do, that they could choose another menu item. I noticed this evening, for example, that one of the menu choices they would clearly meet is one of the menu choices allows them, if parking is on the side of a building or behind the building, then they get credit for one menu item. And that's not one of the ones that they selected, but they meet that one. So, I guess we could here on the night of try and explain how pick out other menu choices that are met, and I can assist with that. But really the wording of these conditions, although it may seem repetitive, was an attempt to make sure that each issue is covered, and that if we found that there was something that would create major problems for the project, then we had an out, kind of like a resolve with. With the other boards and commissions, the phrase "resolve this with staff" is a common thing. We're viewing this.
But if I could comment on it, there's no. It just says revised elevation. It doesn't say with staff. So and that's kind of like a minutia thing, but it kind of makes sense if you say resolve with staff. It's like, okay, yeah, that's going to get resolved. But if it says revise the site plan to comply, then you could just go do whatever. We're kind of digressing. So why don't we table it for a bit and listen to the petitioner, and then if we need to revisit it, we can. Thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Miller?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. On page 27 of the packet, referring to a full drainage analysis, and I was just wondering if the plan review engineer had received that and reviewed it. From this, it doesn't seem like they had yet at this point.
Through the chair, Mr. Miller, the condition on the comments from the private development on page 27, the petitioner is alerted to the pending requirement to provide project-specific full drainage analysis. I think that this goes to Mark Gusick during the building permit. And I think that this may be reviewed and approved already, but the petitioner could speak to the building permitting side of things. I'm sorry, can you direct the question to the petitioner?
Sure, thank you.
We have a question by Commissioner Rem.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I have some what I think are pretty simple questions. On condition number, sorry, I was on the, number 6, where you state that change of paving materials are required. When I read Title 21, and I don't know if it changed in the ordinance, I think it says textured, colored, or striping.
This is a commonly misinterpreted, thank you for the question, through the chair, Ms. Ream. This is commonly misunderstood or misinterpreted part of regulation. They have to do, the requirement is to do two things, both change the paving material and demarc it with one of those options listed.
Okay. Okay, that answers that question. And then on condition 8, revised sheets V1 and L1, I literally counted 60 parking spaces. So I'm not sure where the extra 2 are from. I don't know that this is a valid. And A1.1 actually shows 60 in the notes on the side. Total required 60 spaces, provided 60 spaces.
Through the chair, Ms. Ream, yeah, when I counted it, I came up with 62, but, I could have, could have messed up. I counted by 2 and then divided it. I thought that some of the plans said 60 and some said 62, but.
Okay, so we could probably remove that if everybody's in agreement.
I guess I request that the condition stay there until after I recount them, and I think that I was correct and that you're wrong. But yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean.
I'll bring you my figure with the 1 through 60 written on it. Okay, sure. Regardless, there are only 60. And then finally, typically we have a lot more conditions with respect to the traffic department comments. There was a significant number of comments, and I just want to, and I guess I could direct this to the petitioner, have those comments been resolved. Basically, waivers from Code of Regulations for 26-foot lip-to-lip, show zoning-approved calculations for off-street parking stalls. We had a light and glare statement and sidewalk on East 4th Avenue. So there were just a significant number of comments, and I don't know if we need to show those as conditions to say work with traffic on their comments, or if that matters.
Yeah, so the applicant, through the chair, Ms. Ream, thank you. I'm glad you pointed that out. So the traffic department did a thorough review of the application and drawings, and they looked at things like ADA accessibility and all the things that they would look at in detail with a building permit. But at this stage, we're looking more at the big picture and the zoning requirements. And so the applicant has to, meet the requirements of zoning through this review, mm-hmm. and then meet the requirements and traffic's review through the building permit. So traffic gets a second bite of the apple, and we don't typically hold them to some of these details at this stage of the drawing. Now, I believe that they have, yeah, you get it, okay.
Yeah, I mean, typically we don't pick out what the comments are. It's just resolve with traffic, and that's fine. I was just curious because usually we have a lot more input on that. But I am willing to walk over and show you my count.
Okay.
Thank you. That's
Hold
all.
on. Let me take a look at it too.
Okay. Do we have any more questions for staff? No. Okay. Now we move to the public testimony. Do we have? Okay. Can you please state your name?
Madam Chairman,
And spell it.
Madam Chairman, members of the commission, my name is Tony Hoffman. I'm with the Boutte Company, and I'm one of the petitioners' representatives here tonight. With me tonight is Douglas Gibson of DG Architecture, is the architect, the project architect. Also with me is the owner, Cameron Johnson, and two members of Triad Engineering. They're the petitioners' engineers on the project, did all the civil plans. First of all, I'd like to thank Francis for his help. This is our first petition under this 21-110 or 2107-110, and this new code is difficult, and we can go way down into the rabbit hole, but we won't yet. So first of all, I'd like to say we do agree with all the staff comments, all their conditions of approval. We've worked through all of them, and we agree with every one of them at this point. We had a lot of questions when we first started reading them, and we have since talked with staff quite a few times today and yesterday, and we understand what their thought process is as they are evaluating mostly the building articulation and the building standards in 110. Those are difficult. And to speak to your point, that issue of the striping and the paving, that kind of wordage is embedded everywhere in this 110 residential standards, and that created a lot of the problems that we had, and why you see these types of conditions that he's allowing us, these or select another menu item, because some of them, the way they're worded, are really difficult to understand. And we produce a set of plans. We assume specifically this 2107-060E, we read that and we assumed striping was a viable alternative, not that we couldn't stripe and that we also had to change the pavement type. So we're going to have to come up with an alternative, which is fine. And Francis left us that alternative. And that's why we appreciate the way this is. We will get better at these. So, but this is our first one, and it's tough. We've done a lot of site plans, a lot of other things under zoning and other things, but this new code is difficult, and I can tell you from a lot of different standpoints. The one issue I'd like to bring up before I reserve the rest of my time for any questions you have for the really smart people is on item 14, this was another interpretation we had about the heated sidewalks. We took that option thinking we could heat the sidewalks in front of the entrances and make a zone around, say, 20, 30 feet on each side of the entrances on all the main building entrances and make a nice heated sidewalk entry. That's not the way the code's being interpreted, and that's not the way staff is interpreting it. They want us to build the sidewalk all the way down, a heated sidewalk all the way to 4th Avenue, which is a strip paved road without any sidewalks. So we did find, after reviewing the menu options, there is another option we can use. And Francis, the way he read this, he is allowing us that possibility to pull another option out, and we found one that we can utilize and make a slight change to the building plans and add I believe it's a bicycle shelter. So that's one of the menu items that we are going to go ahead and utilize instead of the heated sidewalks all the way down to 4th Avenue, which would be hugely expensive. So that said, I'd like to reserve the rest of my time, and if you have any specific questions about civil or architectural, I'm going to leave it to the other guys.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for the petitioner? You have left 4.5 minutes.
Okay, thank you very much.
6.5, sorry.
There is one other thing I wanted to say about there's a drainage plan that's been approved. The fill and grade permit has been issued. The site's already under construction. The water, sewer, and storm is already installed. And the DIA was done. So I forgot to mention that.
Thank you. Okay, you have 6 minutes and 16 seconds for your rebuttal time.
Right.
Commissioner
Winchester.
Winchester.
Mr. Hoff, is it?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I think it's refreshing, almost rather have you speak first and say we agree with all the conditions, and then we could sort of get on to what the real issues are.
Okay.
But one of the questions I had related to the heated sidewalks is if you didn't have to heat it all the way to the street, but could provide what you're showing on the drawings, would that be still acceptable rather than a bicycle shelter?
I'd have to say yes.
I guess, and my purpose of this is that the requirement to take it all the way to an unpaved street, in my mind, is kind of ridiculous, and this is again where the code sort of puts things out there that are maybe more than what's required, and yet I can see that having heated sidewalks around the entranceways to the parking lot would possibly be of more benefit to you, your tenants, and to the community than shifting away to some other option that might be not as beneficial.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know. I'm looking at the developer, and I don't know how he feels about that. That was our original intent. However, now that would be a different interpretation of code than what planning has directly given. We asked that question specifically, and they said they will not allow that as an interpretation. Now, if
that's what this commission is all about.
If you as a commission want to add that as a change this item 14 and make that clarification and provide us or choose a different menu item, we would be fine with that.
You know, because the problem, and Mr. Leonetti brought this up earlier, we don't know what your other choices are right now.
Oh, I
and
understand.
We as a commission, and that's
Sure.
what's making us put ourselves in a quandary, which I find this particular case really unsettling, and I have a similar problem as Mr. Leonetti, that we're going to have to direct staff. We don't want to see it, because here we are talking now about a potential option that's better potentially for you, your tenant, and the community than anything the code provides, and yet we're going to say, nope, throw that away, let's put a bicycle rack.
Well, right. Well, it's shelter.
I'm just throwing that out there because I'm seeing multiple opportunities here for things that you might be throwing out the door.
There is, but unfortunately, that's the menu option, the whole idea.
But that's what we're here for.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what this committee
and that's why
is
we've
about.
picked the ones we have, and we're real. The other items that were under discussion, the window area, that's a very small change.
Mm-hmm.
That's just a larger window. The rest of the items are very, very small, and they're not nearly as onerous as you would think when you read this. We had to meet with staff and understand what they were saying, because it's just difficult sometimes when you talk to planners and they start putting this on paper. But I understand what you're saying about item 14, and that was our original intent. But now we would not be. I don't know. Okay. Yeah. We would not be. I don't think we'd be objectionable to it as a change.
So you would accept the heated sidewalks in lieu of the bicycle?
Well, the heated side. So then you're pushing us into a menu item option.
Well, it's the one you chose.
Yes, it is. So then you're right, and we showed it on the plan. So we're not going to. But we don't want to. We do not want to provide it all the way to 4th Avenue. I mean, that was not our intent. So as long as we're clear about that.
I'm not disagreeing with that decision you made there. All I'm suggesting is that when I look at this site plan and I see that the main entrances, in terms of life safety and health for the people in this environment, to have heated sidewalks up to the main parking spaces in front of their door versus all the way to the street, which, okay, that's maybe something we'd like to have, but I don't see that as advantageous as this.
And since we did show that originally, I think we would agree to it.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
As long as you can convince staff that that is what your intent is and we're not stuck with what their interpretation is.
Well, that's our job.
Yes, it is.
Thank you very much.
We have a question from staff, and also I think maybe you want to address that last issue a little, Francis?
Through the chair, I wanted to respond to Ms. Ream's question about the number of parking spaces, and I want to apologize to Ms. Ream. She is correct, and I am wrong. When you're wrong, you're wrong, and so I just have to apologize, and you were correct. I got that wrong. So please strike, delete condition 8 from page 18. That should not be there. So how did staff get it wrong? There was an earlier version of the landscape plan, and I forgot that I swapped it out. I was trying to give you guys the latest information, and the condition was based on an earlier version, which has been corrected by Mr. Hoffman. Sorry about that. Mr. Winchester, how far, what was your proposal? How much to be ice-free walkway?
My suggestion was, as I looked at this, it appeared to me that they had ice-free sidewalks that were in front of the 8 or 10 parking spaces in front of each of the main buildings from the front entry. And I looked at that and said, wow, that's a preference. When he mentioned that they were going to take an option of a protected bicycle rack or something. Shelter, in terms of, keeping snow and rain off of bicycles. I looked at those two and said, wow, this is better even if we don't take it clear to the street. So I was going to accept what they were proposing on their site plan, or I guess it's a architectural plan A1.1. Yeah. I was looking at that and saying that's at least a beneficial situation for the occupants and the community in general.
Thank you for the clarification. I'm sorry, I just was trying to do too many things at once. Through the chair, Mr. Winchester, staff cannot support the site plan and the ice-free walkway as shown. The requirement comes from on-site pedestrian connections on page 7-50 of your code books, and there's a drawing showing how the pedestrian walkways from which this menu choice is based on it's from the primary entrance to the property line, the street-facing property line, and from multiple primary entrances. So the requirement is not to provide ice-free walkways to all the parking spaces or all of the site. It's from the front doors of each of these, the primary entrance, to the street. And in this case, it's just a 24-foot wide, strip paved street with no pedestrian amenities on it, and so the requirement is to take it to the property line. That's what code demands, and that's what we would defend.
Thank you. We have another question from Commissioner Leonetti, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I cannot support a motion with these conditions. So there's two ways to do this. Either we let it go like this and people tell me to be quiet, or we go through and change these conditions so that they're a little bit more definitive.
Oh my God.
So I'll start with that, and if somebody doesn't like that, then they can tell me to be quiet. So first one, you guys are good with the second one? Good. 3. That one's an easy one. Open space, easy to verify that. 5. Second line, if appropriate. It's pretty ambiguous. So I would prefer to see it stricken and say, provide a recorded signed agreement. Now that's pretty onerous for you guys. It is in code. I don't think you're going to get a building permit if you don't have that, because I think other people are going to have a similar concern. So what are your thoughts on striking if appropriate?
This is a new process, and
It is.
No one has done this before. So this is becoming a binding agreement on the land forever and ever. So,
Or you can provide snow storage.
unfortunately, there's not enough room on the site. So,
So that's the binding agreement then.
yeah, I don't see what do you think? Yeah, we'd be fine with that.
Okay.
Provide a recorded signed agreement. Okay.
Or we could just say provide proof of compliance with alternate snow storage management strategies.
That's fine.
F. And then the recorded agreement is part of that F.
Yes.
5 is
That's
what
fine.
I understand.
That's fine.
And then show temporary snow storage on the site plan is
That's fine.
6. In accordance with, that's pretty, 7's good, 8 is stricken, 9, revised elevation's good, 10, or choose a different menu option, meeting, building, and site orientation menu. So have you guys figured that out? Do you have something that's in compliance? Can we strike or, and the rest of it after or?
Oh, have we chosen a different menu option, or can we comply? What you're asking, have we chosen a different menu option or rethought it, or can we live with the show compliance with orientation, is what you're asking, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes, we're fine with that. You can strike or choose.
And Mr. Staff, you can chime in if you have opposition.
Well, I object to this whole line of questioning. I would caution the UDC from trying to make sausage with this project. I don't think that staff or the applicant is prepared to negotiate each one of these conditions of approval on the night of. This is like a puzzle where each sort of requirement is built on another. And to sort of on the spot try and figure this out, I think that the applicants already stated that they have no objection to any of the conditions of approval. Well, I guess the one about ice-free walkways. So
let's be clear about that. We agreed with the condition because you also led us the choice of or choose another menu item. So we were fine with it.
So my purpose for clarifying this is exactly what Mr. Winchester was mentioning. We have no idea. If we say or another menu option, it could be anything. And so the purpose of this is to understand what the project is doing. So what are we doing? We're saying comply with this or something else. Well, okay, that's what the code says without even having something before us. So what are we doing? That's all I'm trying to clarify.
Mr. Leonetti, your point's well taken. Respectfully, I just... I
don't want to bargain and have this project become like, okay, well, we said this at the meeting, but we really meant something else. But I also don't want to not approve the project because I think it's important to keep this process that we've already established to here. There's a project that's before us that has a lot of good merits. There's just some ambiguity in the conditions that could kind of make it go sideways and not be clear on what we're actually going to get.
Well, I guess through the chair, Mr. Leonetti, does the commission really not trust staff enough to review a project against against the conditions of approval or against the Title 21 requirements? Resolving things after the night of a meeting is a common procedure. Does it mean that the commission will know every detail of this site plan or get to be able to put their sort of thumbprint on it? No, but does it mean that the commission is not sort of looking? You're dealing with this just one night, but then the applicant and staff is going to have to continue to work on this for many days after. And I guess your sort of state and time to look at it, you've only had it for in your hands for a week, and we've had it for a month. And I've just seen these sort of things happen before with the Planning and Zoning Commission, and trying to change conditions of approval that have an unintended consequence that creates a problem downstream. I'm just surprised that that these conditions of approval aren't satisfactory to the commission. That's, I guess, where I'm at.
I'll chime in. I trust your review of the code. I wholeheartedly believe that what you're doing is an accurate interpretation of the code. What I have a little bit of heartburn of is leaving the door open for another menu item. And if we can eliminate what that menu item is and we know what we're actually going to get, then when somebody comes back to it later, then they understand what was actually approved. Because when we approve this and we say, or another menu item, the record shows nothing. It says either this or go look in code, anything else in there on the menu item. So that's what I have a little bit of heartburn over. And, we can go through this process right now, and the rubber meets the road when we make a motion. And if people either support the motion and we can talk about it then, or we can talk about it now. And either these conditions get changed at that time or they don't. So, Madam Chair, should I continue or should I not?
No, I see your point, and I think we have to find a way to document the or after, but I feel that the design standards, I've been through the process as a designer, and the design standards need some or, because they are design standards. They are not a code that it's like a mathematical thing. So I feel that if we are asking for not having the or, we are pinching also the architect or the designer into your design needs to look like this. And I think, having the design standards is very complicated, but I believe that they cannot be very rigid. And that's why Francis has all these ors. Once you go as a designer through the whole process, not that I coincide with the whole code, but once you read it and understand it, you know that there's or for some reasons to be a little flexible and control the designing over town. So I believe that staff is doing a great job with the design standards, that we need to work out hard and understand them. It's going to be a very, very difficult process, because even for the people that are architects and that they are designing windows and the facades, it's complex. It was complex to read, and it's a process that we need to get used. And I think we can't change the code. The code, we need to respect the code that has been written. So I believe we need to somehow trust the staff with these design standards.
Okay, so I interpret that to mean that not go down the path I was going down, and we will have other people ask questions and resolve it at the motion.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair.
Madam Chair, I'd like to jump in here if I could. And I guess I would echo the concern that the board members have. When I first read this, I was going, wow, we don't even know what we're approving, because this could change pretty significantly based on these conditions of approval. Tonight, we heard from the applicant that most of the changes are pretty minor. There's going to be minor tweaks to come into conformance. So that made me feel a little better. We have several options open for us. We could return this for redesign so they can make all these tweaks and then bring us back with the final product. We could approve this with a condition that once all these comments are resolved, this case comes back to us under the consent agenda, and then we can see all these changes and could either agree with staff's interpretation of how to change it or not. That's an option for us. I'm at this point, multifamily in our new code is hard, and it is horrible, and I don't envy any architect that tries to do this. And so I'm kind of at the mode of trying to be a little flexible at this point, but a year from now, I don't want to see these ors. As the design community and staff all get better at this, I would hope we would actually see the project that's going to get built, because we're not seeing the project that's going to get built, but it's going to be close. So that's kind of where I'm at this point. And I guess, Mr. Leonetti, my advice is if you want to change these, let's take them on one at a time. I'm okay with that. We'll just make some motions and discuss it and figure out where we want to go. I'm good with that. That's what we're here for. But so I guess that's my 2 cents about where we are and where I'd like to see us go. Thank you, Madam Chair.
So in that light, I think it's important to educate the commission, and the decision-making isn't right now. The decision-making is when we make a motion and have conditions of approval. So if we could, Mr. Hoffman, go through these real quick, and at least then we're educated, and then people might not agree with it at the time of the motion, okay, and we can discuss that then. So back to so you're okay with 10 being or eliminating or?
I believe so, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Madam Chair, can I chime in too on the whole, just this whole process? I guess I just want to put my 2 cents in, and I agree with staff. I think we are going down a road we shouldn't go down by changing these conditions on the fly like this. They still have to comply with code. It's not like they're going to be able to go out and do whatever they want. Like, they're still going to have to comply with code. They're still going to have to work with staff. It's not like they can do anything willy-nilly from here. They are, even though these say or and these have other things, there's still ways that they have to comply. And by us making them dictate tonight exactly what they're going to do, it just could hamstring them, and like Steph said, in ways we can't foresee, which they've already tried very, very hard to comply with code. I guess I totally agree with staff that this is not the way we should go. So that's my 2 cents on the matter, because you asked. So
I did.
I don't think this is the way we should be going.
So it's up to you, Madam Chair.
So can I hear from anybody else? Well, it will be another one. Commissioner Joe Miller.
So I think you're asking about the topic of going down the laundry list and me sitting here and asking and changing. So we're going down the line and asking Mr. Condon, do you approve or not approve of me going down and yapping about every one of these things?
No, I don't approve of your going down the line and making changes to staff's proposal. I think that staff has done a remarkably good job in trying to meet the requirements of this new code. I think the petitioner has done a remarkable job in designing a great addition to our community, and to sit here and pillory a petitioner over minutia, I think, is a very grave disservice by the Urban Design Commission.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Miller, I'm going to go down the line.
I'm going to side with staff on this one as well, since they've have gone way deeper into the code on this matter than I have.
Okay. Sorry. Ms. Ream.
I'm torn. I see the point. I understand that when we read conditions 9 through 14, it's really hard to say what those other menu options really are and where they could go, and whether or not it makes sense. Maybe it doesn't make sense. But at the same time, this being the first case we've really seen, the petitioner being more than willing to comply with the conditions set before us, and having to comply, as Ms. Emerton did state, with code at the end of the day. If they have an answer to the question, number 10, how do they plan? If they know they can do it, how do they plan to do it? If we could get those answers, if they have those answers, then I understand that. If they don't have those answers, then we leave it open so that we're not hamstringing them at the end of the day. But to limit the condition to something they think they can do tonight, that is a difficult decision, I think, to make.
But the irony of the whole conversation is that that's what they're supposed to present to us, is how they can meet the code. And I get that it's complicated, and I don't want to pigeonhole them into something. Sorry, I'm not supposed to speak out.
I'm sorry, I will respond to that. And I agree with that, and I think that there's something that maybe needs to be adjusted in the review and delivery process between when staff gets the packet, how long they review it, how long the petitioner has to review the staff comments, so that they can come prepared with responses of what they are going to do. And maybe that's something that we talk about outside of this meeting. So at this point, I side with staff as well.
Madam Chairman, can I speak and say one thing? Now, I do understand Mr. Leonetti's concerns. But let's say, for instance, we did decide, and we had come in with another option that's under the menu item, or we do decide. Does that mean you would or wouldn't approve it with that item? These are all acceptable menu items. So, in theory, no matter what we do, it has to be approvable under code. So, let's say we chose an item with a bigger facade as one of our menu items. So would that mean, instead of, say, heated walkways, just as an example, would that mean that you would not approve that project with that, or you would? I mean, I understand that you like the idea of having 100% design, 100% complete, but I tell you, when we got into this 110 design standards, there's a lot of ambiguity in those menu items. I mean, That's one of the main reasons, and Francis and his boss has gone through these, and there's still a lot of questions about the writing and those menu items and how they apply and how you apply those to a building construction and how they apply to streets, frontages, and there's just still a lot of questions. So that's why I mean, we can go through these one by one if that makes staff more comfortable, but I really think that the way, if that makes the commission more comfortable, I really think the way that staff has written these is the way we have always processed this type of site planning under under planning and zoning, under all kinds of site plans. I've been to a lot of them, and this is the way we've always done it. Now, I understand that you're not seeing 100% design, but that's almost impossible to get to until we get in the door, and possibly the one thing that may make the commissioners more comfortable is resolve with staff, because it doesn't say that. It says or pick, or resolve with staff, satisfactory resolve with staff. It doesn't say that on there, and I get that question. So, I mean, we're not just going to go in there and say we pick this item and it goes, because we still have to do that filing of the zoning action. And all these conditions have to be met to staff and his boss's satisfaction, as well as the planning director. So we're not going to slide some half menu item that it's just not going to work that way. So I put my 2 cents in about the menu items and whether or not they're acceptable if we pick this one or this one or this one. So.
Thank you. Now we're moving to Commissioner Condon.
I believe I already stated my piece.
Okay, Commissioner Miller.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question is way off of this topic. So if we're okay to move on, and of course I'm going to ask about drainage. First off, I wanted to say that I appreciate the use of the infiltration chambers underneath the parking lot. I think that's a great way to go. Those chambers don't come without maintenance, though, and one of street maintenance's comments was to state on the plans that the storm system would be privately maintained. I'm just curious as to how or what the plan is.
The maintenance schedule kind of thing. I'm going to leave that to Brandon Marcotte. It's his stamp on it.
Yes, Brandon Marcotte with Triad Engineering. Through the chair, Mr. Miller, the process with private development requires a O&M plan to be developed and recorded against the property. So there's a formal list of dates and times of when to maintain the parking area, the infiltration galleries, and the storm system. And again, that's recorded against the property, and the property owner will be required to maintain that infrastructure.
Okay, thanks. Is that going to be, is that Anchorage Pacific Associates, or will they be?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so they're going to be managing the property after it's constructed?
That is correct.
Okay. The other thing I wanted to ask about was the retaining wall. And just to confirm, it looked like in the, let's see, northwest corner, the retaining wall is about 20 feet high, is that right? Am I looking at that wrong, or? I'm looking at sheet, let's see, C5, under cross-section 2.
The retaining wall itself, through the chair, Mr. Miller, the retaining wall itself is only about 13 feet high at its highest point. Above that, you'll get a 2-to-1 slope, which might be what you're seeing in that cross-section.
Okay.
And excuse me, again, these cross-sections don't quite capture the maxes or mins for these retaining walls.
Okay, and then on the retaining wall, it looks like you have on the uphill side, you have a drainage rock, gravel drainage rock section that drains into a tow drain.
Through the chair, Mr. Miller, that is correct.
And then where does that tow drain drain into?
Through the chair, Mr. Miller, the storm drain system design, I don't know if you can see it in your packet on page C10, I believe. And actually, case in point, this might have been added after the plans in your packet. There is a 6-inch line available for that tow drain in the last catch basin there by building 2. We've stubbed out a small 6-inch line to pick up that tow drain.
And that goes into the infiltration chamber?
Yes, it does.
So I'm just kind of curious, how much water are you getting behind that wall? Is it flowing pretty good, or?
Hopefully very little with this, with the use of this drain. The drain rock above it is, the idea is to remove all the water in the soil behind the wall.
Do you happen to recall what the groundwater surface elevation is?
There was none found on site during soil explorations.
Okay. The reason, and then as I understand it, you've already broken ground doing some grading?
Through the chair, Mr. Miller, that is correct.
So one of the questions that I have is a comment that we had received, a public comment saying that there's been some drainage problems coming down Patsy Street that had not occurred before. And I don't know if those folks are here tonight or if they'll be speaking later on. But just wanted to ask you about that and see if you had seen that.
Through the chair, Mr. Miller, we had received notice of that public comment late this afternoon. We had a brief amount of time to do some research on our part, review inspection reports, and talk with our inspectors on site, and we had found no evidence of SWEP issues. All BMPs appeared to be in place, and likewise we had no notifications or contact from right-of-way or watershed management regarding this public comment.
So you haven't really had a chance to look to see where that source might be coming from?
Through the chair, no, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Chairman Miller, Patsy is a 20-foot lane that I don't, in the time I've spent out there since the beginning of the first survey and the boundary work, I've never seen a municipal improvement or a grading on it. It's a rock road. So I don't know. Having been out there during the heavy falls, the BMPs are very effective on site. There's been no overflow off of them. So we did have a lot of rain last month, and it's not coming off our site. So.
And additionally, if I may add, through the chair, Mr. Miller, there's been a street sweeper on site throughout the entire project this summer.
Thank you. Commissioner Leonetti?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Hoffman, would it delay your project if we had you come back for
the issue coming back for a redesign, the issue is...
not a redesign, a consent agenda? Just to show what you guys are proposing?
As long as we walk away from here with an approval, I don't think that'd be a problem. What is going to get reviewed under a consent agenda? The entire package?
So basically, yes. So basically, you would go away, and because whatever items you pick. We don't put you under the gun right now to choose one, and then you work it out with staff. Staff puts it on the consent agenda. We see that it complies, and it's approved.
I'm going to let Douglas Gibson speak. Sure. I think actually he may have a better handle on the menu items.
Douglas Gibson, 430 State Street, Eagle, Idaho. One of the things I wanted to make sure I pointed out is, first off, thanks to Francis. Design is a collaborative process. We don't design in a vacuum. Anybody who's in the construction industry, landscape, structural, developer, it's all a process. We met with Francis. We burdened him this afternoon with a request to meet with him because of these 4 items in particular, and our misinterpretation, my professional misinterpretation of the codification of what you all would like to see here in the city of Anchorage. First off, I'll give you a real quick history of my background. Our firm has built in the last 10 years. I've worked on 75 units. I'm a licensed architect in 20 different jurisdictions, over 4,000 apartment units, and about $500 million in construction. And I can say without doubt that this has been the most complicated process I've ever gone through. And that means that Anchorage beats the city of Los Angeles. Now, and I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but where you are, the next step up is staff like Francis, okay? Because we had 3 separate iterations of applications that we kept sending back to him. Now, normally you'd have somebody in the planning staff that would go, well, you're an idiot, come see me next week. And then we'd go back and he'd say, come see me again next week. He worked with us. I mean, he worked with us in a collaborative process, and we'd look at the code, and I agree, really difficult to work through some of these issues. And we would give him an exhibit, and he would say, no, you're not reading it right. And we'd get on the phone, and we'd do it again. We'd send another exhibit up. And so the whole process of how the site came together, how the buildings came together, and then finally where we're at today, and what we're really requesting. So, these items, 10, 11, 12, 13, when we sat down with Francis, across the table, we rolled out the big set of drawings, and we went through each one of these items, I was able to understand from him what he was looking for. And it literally took a face-to-face meeting between the two of us to come up with those items where I said, oh yeah, we've got 12.96% glazing. Boom, I can put a couple more windows up here, we're fine. We'll meet that requirement. We're, 22 and change, we'll calc in the gables, boom. We're still going to be over the 20%, okay? But not being able to read through all the codification, he was able to kind of show the light to us. And Cameron and I, we got out of the meeting, we're like, okay, great. We now know what he wants. So part of that communication that we've had with Francis is now we're on the hook to go back to him with revised exhibits. And these revised exhibits will be, this is the calculation for the glazing. This is what we're declaring as our primary entry. This is how we're going to handle these components, and it's part of the collaborative process. I will never draw a perfect project. I can guarantee you that. And we'll never build a perfect project, okay? But when we're working with staff that is concerned and has bought into a very difficult code, that's where you end up with the type of dialogue that we're having. So we'll make the changes. We'll get the changes back to Francis, and those changes will then be put into our drawing set for our permit application. So as far as I know, we're not in the permit process for the building. Now, the footings and foundation permit, we've secured that. We're working through that because weather is a big issue up here. Obviously, we want to get as much done as we can before the snow hits, right? So working with Francis on the building end, we're not going to be going vertical until the spring at the earliest, right? May, June. So that gives us a little bit more flexibility, but I can guarantee you that here in the next month, we're going to be going back and forth with Francis, creating those documents and those exhibits that would then provide for him and for staff and for the municipality a guarantee that we are meeting the intent. And that's what the schedule is all about, giving us those options and flexibility. Because as a prescriptive code, you don't want to have every building look the same, regardless of how it's interpreted either by a specific commission or by a specific architect or by individuals within the staff that say this is the code and by golly, we're not going to step beyond this line. You can't operate that way. Everybody has to have a little give and take. And so we're here in the spirit of cooperation to work with you guys in whatever manner is appropriate to see that the project continues to move forward in the spirit of like working with Francis and Erica and what they've provided for us on that end. So I can open myself up for questions if you have any architectural specific to the project. Madam Chairman. Okay.
We have a question from staff. Francis, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There are many things I would like to say and respond to Mr. Sawhill's question too, but I would ask that the Commission consider hearing public testimony, but urge the Commission to hear public testimony and park this issue until after that.
Okay, now we're moving to public testimony. Do we have any representatives of groups who wish to testify? Please come forward. Spell and state your name for the record.
Good evening. I'm Gerald Idem, E-I-D-E-M. Probably the only person directly involved with this project, and that I own the property to the north of this project, 2.5 acres there. And they're directly south of me. First of all, I don't have all the stuff that these people have. I went over to the city 3 or 4 times, looked at their roll of map. They wouldn't make any copies for me, so pretty much trying to listen to what you're saying. I'd like to give directions north, south, east, and west. Maybe follow on your place. I don't have anything to look at here. My referral to your referral, so I'm kind of running blind here, so bear with me, please. I've taken some pictures to support what we're talking about. Basically, the project is on 4th Avenue, and I'm on Dubin Avenue, which is north of this project, 330 feet. Both of them are 330 feet. And it's a big hill. Well, thank you. It's a big hill there that they've carved down with very, very excellent crew, might say. Done an excellent job for the builder here. Got to commend them on expertise, but anyhow, it's cut 40 feet out of the hill, right in front of my property, and it's to the south of my property, which is, of course...
Can you please get a little closer to the microphone?
Oh, sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyway, show this. Can these pictures be shown on this machine? Anybody know? Well, okay, I'll just hold them up and try to demonstrate, I guess. This is...
You can pass that pictures to the front.
Yeah. Does this thing work? No. Okay. Here's a picture. I'm up here behind the backhoe on the hill, practically the top of the hill, and there's the south. We're taking a picture from the south to the north. I got my property, and I'm sitting up on the hill 40 feet above the ground level of this project. So therefore, when I walk out my door, at the very top of the hill, there's a metal fence running most of the way around, but just 20 feet or more missing. So what happens if you walk out there in the dark, for example, you walk off a 40-foot cliff, which I guess is their liability, not mine, I don't think. But you need to do something about it, like build a good fence for them. They provided a 10-foot right-of-way for utilities there, according to prints, but the electrical company has got overhead power. Oops.
Okay, your time ran out, but I'm sure a commissioner can make you a question so you could continue with your conversation. Do we have any questions for the testifier?
Am I out of time, Madam? Or?
Yeah, but just hold there. You will continue. Commissioner Leonetti?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Edom, can you continue your dialogue that you have here?
Yes, I will.
These pictures. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, I hit the mic there. But yeah, I'm 40 feet above the ground level of this project. And there's a 20-foot gap in the fence. They strung a red tape across there. Strung a red tape across there to encourage people to be alert when they're stepping off a 40-foot bluff, which over the time before it got cleared off was all wooded. Very nicely birch trees, 40 feet high, all gone. And people would walk, well, basically my street is dead end, so people would walk through the wooded area on top of the hill to go to Fred Meyer's down south of us, so on and so forth. So people used to camp out there. So it eliminates, but anyhow, the point being, they need to come up with a fence that is suitable for their project. Now, the second problem they got, third problem actually, second and third, they've got a 10-foot right-of-way on the where the fence is middle of the 20-foot right-of-way, 10 feet on my side, 10 feet on their side. They've cut all the bank down right up to the right-of-way. So there's only 10 feet on their side and 10 feet on my side. Now, what you guys are scheduled to put underground power line in there, replace the overhead. I don't know where they're going to do that without falling off the bluff, frankly. And secondly, the bluff conditions is another project to the east of this project. Same thing, cut down a hillside, build a project in there. That's a 30% slope. This is a 10% slope on this side. So to get more space for the project, they eliminate the slopage as far as safety in my mind. So I brought that to your attention. The water problem, I got pictures of the water collecting there while they're building, but this soil does not percolate water. This soil is just hard as rock. So all the rain hitting this area is going to flow down the hill. Before it was all tree and moss and 3 feet of stuff, foliage. It's all barren now, so all the water has to go down the hill. They got big water puddles at the bottom of the hill. They fill all that in, so now it's running down the street. There's no drainage in the street to carry off this water. I never heard of this project that they're proposing to somehow bury it in the ground and let the ground absorb it. The ground's not going to absorb it at all, in my mind. Never will. And so it seems to be something you need to look at seriously. So now there's a retaining wall to the east and along the north side, across from me, proposed. Now here's a retaining wall, in my mind, that should be built there. This is built by what's now the city's, what they got, a big building there across from Fred Meyer's, to the east of Fred Meyer's where the creek runs by. So this project should have that kind of retaining wall in my mind. But as far as I can tell from their prints, they got about a 4-foot retaining wall with 10% slope, and they're going to grass all that to absorb the water there, hopefully. And it's going to be, in my mind, it's going to come sliding down the hill, and it's going to be built up behind a retaining wall, which has no supports. It's going to be a concrete block walls, as far as I can tell. Nothing structural like this for a 40-foot rise above the project. So I recommend that change be put in your thoughts. I also have interest in two things. First of all, I'm only property owner visibly north on the north end. Across the street on the south end, across 4th Avenue, is a fellow that owns that project. Also to the west of them, he owns two properties there adjacent to this project. And he's moved over to Wash Hill apparently, so he's pretty much abandoned the property down there as far as developing any further. I propose on my part to build a fourplex up there. I already have several fourplexes up there on the hillside. I'm not going to tear the friggin' hill down to put in fourplexes, so I'll make sure that I don't stuff into their property. My fourplex is in the process of being developed, will be presented to the city by January, I think. So that's some point for you to consider.
Will you be willing to forfeit your pictures as exhibits to allow the commissioners opportunity to review them, please?
Sure. Secondly, I find nothing like you guys are talking about being available in the public arena, nothing here, nothing at the city to review what you're talking about. So I had to kind of pull this stuff out from the project they presented to the city for foundation and excavation. So that's why I'm somewhat hindered here, I think. But anyhow, I hope this point's standing in good stead. It's a good project. They got wonderful people doing the contracting for them. They got all the pipes laid, ready to lay the gravel down for the road. They're just doing a super quick job. and I have no objection to the project. I do object to the 10% slope. I object to no fencing, no support barriers to hold up the 40-foot wall specifically, and also drainage is not going to happen under what they talked about, especially the architect going out there says there's no showing water. Well, it's going to show, especially as the snow melts. It's already showing before that.
We have a question for you, Commissioner Leonetti.
Thank you, Mr. Ide, for coming up here.
I'm sorry, I got hearing aids. I couldn't hear.
Thank you for coming up here and coming out tonight and talking. I actually had a question for the petitioner. Anybody else has a question for Mr. Ide? Well, I will hold my question.
So I think the public needs to have some more information available here or at the city so we can review some of this stuff more expertly, speak to you. I hope my presentation is helpful.
Yeah. Commissioner Sawhill, do you have a questionnaire for the testifier?
Yes, I do. So you own the property north of the development?
Yes, sir.
And so I was confused whether there was a fence there or a partial fence. Is there holes in it?
There's a 6-foot steel fence, wire fence shown in the pictures running along east and west on the north side of their property and the south side of mine, which is the center line of the right-of-way.
Okay. And so you're thinking that 6-foot chain link fence isn't good enough? We should do something different? Is that what you're thinking?
Well, chain link fence is going to fall over. You're going to put steel posts down there 8 or 10 feet, I think, to hold up a fence at all.
Okay.
They've already excavated, so basically no way to go back and put 30% slope instead of 10% slope.
Okay, so you're thinking the fence has been compromised, going to fall over?
Well, I think that they need to fix it, yeah. Okay. It's their project. They need to protect people from accidentally walking across the 40-foot bluff.
Yeah.
Not a piece of red tape's not going to do it, in my mind.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Do we have any more questions to the testifier? No? Thank you.
No, thank you so much. It's a good project, good contractor, so carry on, please.
Yeah. Does there's anyone else that would like to testify from the public? No one else wants to testify from the public? Okay. Okay, I guess now we are moving to rebuttal time, and you have 4 minutes and 32 seconds.
Yes. First thing I want to respond to is his questions, and I've seen him out there every day that I've been out there, and he is watching it like a hawk. There is a gap, I think, in the chain link fence right now. It's about 20 feet wide, and so the petitioner does agree to go ahead and, in an interim basis, put up construction fencing across that. So over the course of the winter, no one comes onto the site, and it does block that, because I think people do come along his driveway and want to come through there. And there is a gap in the fence, and we recognize that. So, but regarding the grading and the right-of-way or in the easement, some of it has encroached into the easement, but it's nothing that Chugach or the electrical installation will be hindered by. So.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
we're welcome for any other questions. Staff, okay.
I guess the public hearing is closed. Ed, did you have any questions?
No, Madam Chair, my question was answered. Thanks.
Okay, perfect. So the public hearing is closed.
Madam Chair,
And we have...
I have one more question of staff before we move on.
Can I get first staff to talk? I think they were first in line.
I would just like staff had... I don't write real fast, and so you suggested some changes to condition number 11. Could you repeat what those changes were?
Through the chair, Mr. Sawhill, yes.
I have them.
It would read the same as it is now, but after the on the second line where it says 21.07 110C6, you would strike the M and put a K there, and then you would strike the italicized site entry feature, and you would write in that place visible front entries. It's just a slightly different section of code that this condition of approval is intended to address. And if the commission will permit me, I'd like to also respond to Mr. Sahil's earlier question.
Sure.
So I couldn't find a condition of approval that addressed the primary entrance requirement on multiple dwelling units on a single lot on the south side of building number 3. And so staff suggests a new condition of approval to address that requirement. The condition of approval would state, provide a primary entrance on the south side of building 3 in accordance with 2107 110 G 2 C double I period. Separately, there was a lot of discussion about the best way to proceed with a complicated case and several conditions of approval that would require what staff finds to be minor changes to the site, amount of window area, wheel stops, these things. But I just a big picture sort of comment that I would make is that there have been other cases that have previous to this one that came through these design standards. Clutton Estates 2 was one, Grass Creek North was another, and I don't believe that in either of those two cases that a requirement to postpone the case and return before the commission with revised plans was required. And I guess I'm interested in not seeing us set as a precedent for that, but also I guess would point out a point of information that I don't think the commission would want to appear to treat applicants differently or unfairly. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question of the applicant based on this new condition of approval that staff is suggesting. I don't think you've had a chance to digest that.
We have no issue with it.
No issue with it?
No. We've already talked to them about that, and it's something that...
I just wanted to give you a chance on it.
No, we have no issue with adding it as an additional condition.
Yeah, all right. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm done now.
Thank you, Commissioner Miller.
Yes, thank you. I have a follow-up question for the applicant. And again, this has to do with the drainage problems that are occurring on Patsy. And I'm not quite sure how to proceed with it. There's examples of this all over the city where you cut into a slope and you expose a groundwater seep, and you start having negative effects on lots of folks downstream or downhill. And the initial response was that you found out about this issue today, and you don't think it's coming from your site, but to me that doesn't sit well. I think we need to investigate a little bit more. And I'm just trying to figure out, well, I'll throw it back to you. How would you research that and try to identify the source of that drainage problem?
Through the chair, Mr. Miller, I think we would get in touch with right-of-way and street maintenance and try to identify the source of the problem. From the surface, from what I can tell, it appears to be kind of a construction, a SWEP issue, if you will. We've had some heavy rains lately. If it is indeed from our project, it could be SWEP related and such that we need to investigate with not only street maintenance and right-of-way, but also our contractor to look and see if any BMPs were not in place. But I would start with street maintenance and right-of-way and find out first if it is coming from our development. From what we found out tonight, a cursory review, we haven't seen any evidence that that's the case.
Okay, so I'm trying to think of how to draft a condition that would provide an avenue to do that research, and might need some help on that, but when we get into the conditions, I'll throw one out there, and if we have to massage it a little bit. And I don't want to kill the project by any means, but I do want to...
Sure, and if I may, through the chair, Mr. Miller, I don't mean to cut you off. This project has been analyzed per Chapter 2 of the Design Criteria Manual. Mm-hmm. It has been submitted for review by private development. We've received comments on that drainage analysis, and it has been subsequently approved by private development as well. So the end product that we're going to end up with is not the same as the interim product between clearing and finished product, which is the state that we're in now.
Right, which is why I wanted to set a condition that allows you to look at, maybe it is a construction impact, maybe it's just something temporary, but then again, maybe it's not.
Sure.
And it'd be in our best interest to dig into that a little bit more and try to identify that.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. If there's any more questions? Can we get a motion to approve? Okay, now we're closing again the public hearing. Can we please get a motion to approve the case? Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Emerton and a second by Commissioner Joel Condon. Commissioner Emerton, could you state your motion?
Yes, I move to approve case 2015-0094, subject to staff conditions 1 through 7. Striking condition 8, include 9 and 10. Condition 11 needs to be revised to revise the site plan, building elevations, and floor plan to make buildings 2 and 3 comply with 21.07.110C.6. Strike M, add K, and then remove site entry feature and replace it with visible front entry. And then the rest will read the same. Conditions 12, 13, and 14 will stay in. Remove condition number 15, and 16 will stay, as well as provide new condition 17, provide primary entrance on south side of building 3 in accordance with 21.07.11.G 2C II. As well as condition 18, install construction fencing to repair the hole in the fence that currently exists.
Would you like to speak to your motion?
Sure. Seems like the petitioner's done a great job with the new code, and they've done a lot of work, and looks like it's going to be a great project, especially in an area town. We definitely need more of this kinds of housing, so I'm excited to see it move forward. I also find that this also complies with the Anchorage 2020 plan, Housing Policy 60, to provide design attractive affordable housing. It also complies with the East Anchorage District Plan, Strategy 1.3. They also combine, there is a whole list of approval criteria and findings on staff report page 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9, 10, and 11, and 12, and 13. Outside of, actually in 14 and 15, outside of the ones I've listed, and 16, that speak to these findings and the ways that the petitioner has complied with code.
Thank you. Commissioner Condon, would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I think it's a very strong project. I'm glad to see this going in. Glad to see you survive the process with Francis. My feeling is that you've survived the Urban Design Commission scrutiny, in my opinion, and I intend to support this motion wholeheartedly.
Thank you. Commissioner Joe Miller?
Yes, thank you. I'd like to amend the motion to add a condition. Not sure if this is the time to do that or not. Okay. And I would like that condition to state, identify and resolve source of drainage problems occurring on Patsy Street with street maintenance. Let me try that again. Identify and resolve source of drainage problems occurring on Patsy Street with street maintenance.
Okay, I have a motion to amend the initial motion by Joe Miller and a second by Jim Sawhill. I think he already stated his motion. Would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes, thank you. I just, as I said earlier, we've seen these problems occurring all over, and it's really hard to identify the source of it in such a short amount of time. So I think you'd be doing the neighborhood a service just by trying to identify what the source of the drainage problem is, and then resolve it. If this is something that's just construction related, then it'll be resolved after it's built. But if you've exposed to seep or some other larger issue, I think there's some other mitigation that you'll need to do.
Thank you. Commissioner Joe Miller, would you like to speak to your motion? Oh, no, sorry, Jim Sawhill, it's second.
Yeah. Thank you, Madam Chairman. I intend to support the amendment. As a comment, typically issues like that aren't resolved with street maintenance. They're typically resolved with private development section who approves the drainage plan. So I was thinking of amending the amendment to make that. So I'm going to make a motion to amend the amendment to strike street maintenance and insert private development.
Can I get a second? Okay, we have a motion to amend the amendment of Joe Miller. Would you like to speak to your motion?
I think it's just the typical person you would resolve that with, and I think it'll be smoother for the applicant and probably get a better result for the issue.
Joe Miller, would you like to speak to your second?
No, I concur with that.
Okay, perfect. Now we start voting.
On the amendment to amend?
On the amendment to amend. Okay, the motion has passed. Now we return to our original motion to amend. Yeah, the motion to amend. Can we start voting? No. Yeah. So. Okay, the motion has passed, and now we move forward with our original motion. And please, we start voting.
Excuse me, Madam Chair, I had some comments that I'd like to... This is the main motion that we're talking about?
Yes.
Yeah. So is it out of turn to talk during the voting?
No.
We need to, if you have additional comments or amendments you'd like to make, we should do that now.
I don't have amendments, I have comments.
Okay, great. I think we should do that before we vote.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so...
What if we've already voted?
That's fine. Just hold it.
Be flexible.
Go?
Yeah, go.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I intend to support the motion. I appreciate the dialogue with staff and with the petitioner. I will make the comments that this case before us is not atypical from the other ones that we've seen. In general terms, the atypical part has to do with the way that the conditions are written, and I would encourage staff to avoid ambiguous and or statements. And for this case, I don't think that it's necessary, since it's the first couple, to go back and start changing on the fly. But I do think it's imperative that petitioners have a strong case before the commission, that commission understands what they're approving. And I think tonight we have a somewhat good understanding of it. There's some or statements in there that could change, and I have full faith in staff and the petitioner that they're going to make it a project that's in compliance with code. Thank you.
Thank you. Please proceed voting. Okay. The motion has passed, and we are moving forward with conditions 1 to 7. We delete 8, maintain 9 and 10, revise 11, maintain 12 through 14, delete 15, maintain 16, add new conditions 17, 18, and 19. Thank you. I think maybe we should get a 5-minute break, or not? Yes? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to start with our last hearing. Yeah, I'll wait for you to get.
Can you go to the next?
Uh-huh.
We need to put on record. Meant to vote me.
So I need to just say a disclaimer that Commissioner Winchester disclosed to nay. That means no. I'm sorry.
When I ask you, like, what do you think? That's when you need to say, no, like, take control of the company, because I was overstepping my
But
bounds.
then she's the one who's on the unit, the rest of the people will be right. Yeah, we should talk at the end. Okay, so we just need to make a fast correction. Commissioner Winchester. Oh, he's gone. Okay, it's okay. I'm just gonna put into the record that he abstained from voting, but he cannot do that, so his vote is nay. On case number 2015-0094. He knows. Now, our last hearing tonight, case 2015-0095. The petitioner, Anchorage School District, Public Facility Site Plan and Landscape Plan Review per AMC 2103-180 for Tourniquet Elementary School Renewal Project. Do we have a staff report?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. This is a site plan for the elementary landscape plan for the Tourniquet Elementary School Renewal Project. It was reviewed under the new Title 21. This proposal is intended to the renewal project is intended to renovate the school, to extend the useful life for another 20 years. The scope of work includes both exterior and interior improvements. To provide the exterior improvements to provide pedestrian and vehicle separation, as well as separation of bus and automobile traffic. Improvements will be made to address code and life safety issues, as well as providing a new admin area that will be reorganized and a secure main entry to the building. There will be a thermal envelope upgrades to the exterior walls and windows, mechanical and electrical upgrades and architectural improvements to the exterior envelope will also be made that will result in energy efficiency. And basically, in reviewing this under the new code, the standards all appear to be generally met. It is a use that was lawfully existing at the time of the adoption of the new Title 21 code. There does not appear to have been a prior site plan approval or landscape approval because it was constructed in 1956. And so therefore, if it lacks an approved site plan review under the new code, it shall be considered to have an approved site plan as a conforming use. So in reviewing all of the requirements outlined under the PLI district for a school on pages 2 and 3 through 4 and 5, they're all everything has been complied with, and the development is consistent with the goals, objectives, and policies of the comprehensive plan, specifically policy 42 and 43, 44, 45, 50, and 78, which are outlined on pages 6 and 7 of the packet. The department planning division does recommend approval, subject to conditions 1 through 7 on pages 8 and 9 of the packet, omitting condition 6, which states resolve with current planning the interior parking lot landscaping requirement for the northwestern parking lot. In re-reviewing this with the applicant, it was found that the preservation of existing natural vegetation along the northern boundary adjoining West Northern Lights Boulevard and the western boundary, as well as supplemented by proposed landscaping, does meet the requirements for the interior parking lot landscaping. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Do we have any questions to staff? Okay. Do we have a petitioner? Can you please state and spell your name for the record?
Absolutely. My name is Paul Burrell, B as in boy, A-R-I-L. And I'm the project architect with Envision Architecture. And with me I have Stephanie Brown, our landscape architect. And sitting here we have Yuki Jansen and Harold Patterson, both with ASD Facilities and project managers for the project. So quick school introduction. Located on 3500 West Northern Lights, the site is 10 acres, and as Margaret had stated, originally constructed in 55 and 56. There were additions built in 57, 60, 74, 77, and 83, and now currently we're planning this renewal project. The Tourniquet Elementary School is a Russian immersion program. 2/3 of their school, approximately 290 students of their actual enrollment of 435 are Russian immersion students. And they have 21 regular teaching station classrooms and 4 auxiliary teaching station classrooms for resource, art, music, and computer lab. So a quick project synopsis and overview. What we're trying to accomplish with the project is that we met with and gathered information from school staff, teachers, principals, and parents, and we've also met with the community council on a couple of times. The goal of the project is to improve student safety, site circulation, and improve parking requirements, and as Margaret stated, to extend the life of the building. The overall overview of the site plan, I'd refer you to page 59 of your packet. It shows you the existing conditions of the school. in the existing site plan. And when you compare that, page 59, to what we show here in the site plan, you'll notice that there's not a whole lot different in terms of how the site is accessed and how you exit the site. The same amount of driveways that currently exist off of McKenzie Drive to the west and off of Sapala Drive to the east remain. There's some slight shifts off of McKenzie Drive, but the driveways stay intact. The main circulation of the school stays intact in terms of how you enter and exit the site. We're just adding a couple of, we're shifting some things around to improve traffic flow. So the kind of the four main things that we're doing is we're relocating the main entry. We're shifting the main entry that currently exists on the, I don't know if you can you guys hear me okay? If I step away from the microphone?
Maybe Stephanie can help you to point?
Yeah.
Sorry.
So the main entry is currently located on the east side of the north wing of the school, and we're moving that to the west side of the north wing. That's one major revision to the project. And then we're relocating the primary student playground, which is located at the front of the school, and you'll see that on page 59, but we're relocating that to the back of the school to make room for a new parking lot that we're adding to the front of the school. And then we're improving student pickup and drop-off by extending the student drop-off area and adding sidewalk and frontage for the students to be able to be dropped off and adding length to that. And then we're improving the bus loop, which is occurring down on the east side of the south wing. And there we're currently, right now, the buses still drop off in this area, but they drop off into a parking lot area, and they have parking spaces behind buses. And so we're eliminating those parking spaces, and we are allowing a sidewalk drop-off for buses, creating an improved bus loop.
Okay. And as Paul said, I'm Stephanie from Corvus Design, the landscape architect on the project. I'm going to go through a basic overview of the landscape improvements and the Title 21 site improvements that we're doing. Our primary goal for this project was to keep the existing vegetation on the site, and I think we've achieved that, especially along Northern Lights. All the vegetation up there is being maintained minus about 3 trees. So where required, we're adding additional landscaping, mostly shrubs and a few trees, along McKenzie Road, where the parking lot is going to be added, and then up along Northern Lights as well. And then we're along Sapala Drive, where we're doing the new parking lot, we're adding the code-required landscaping there as well. We're adding some green infrastructure through a rain garden along Sapala Drive, which is going to take up the storm water from the parking lot there. And we're still working on a couple other rain gardens with Civil. We're providing new pedestrian amenities. We've got bike racks at both entrances, the back and the front. We've got benches at the front and bear-proof trash cans, and we'll be screening the dumpster and the trash compactor. That's all I've got. Paul's going to take it back over.
So we know we have a time here, so we're trying to keep this short. We definitely want to address outstanding staff comments. We've reviewed MOA staff comments, and we have no objections, and we will comply with their recommendations. We recognize that there was no public comments, and that was there was general support for the project at the community council meetings as well. We'd like to reserve the remainder of our time for any rebuttals.
Thank you. Do we have any questions to the petitioner? No questions? Commissioner Condon?
Yeah, I just had a quick question about the turning as you're traveling west on Northern Lights, just turning left on Sapala. Has there been any problem with that maneuver? Should a light be there maybe, or I don't know. But your buses are turning left onto Sapala, and that could be a potential hazard? Correct.
I can address that through the chair, Mr. Condon. The buses, when they exit off Sapala, they don't take a left, they take a right, or they go through the neighborhood.
I was wondering, when they come from Northern Lights onto Sapala.
Right. When they come from, well, there's no known problems at this time that we're aware of. In communication with ASD's traffic department and with MOA's traffic department, there has been no issues or concerns brought up.
Okay.
Commissioner Rem?
I have a similar comment, thank you, Madam Chair, on a comment that was made about the two drive aisles that come through from McKenzie to Sapala.
Yes, these ones here?
So when they reach the east side, how is that traffic control mitigated when you have if you have two vehicles trying to make a turn? Are they only turns, one left and one right? Or?
Exactly, that would be the case. One turn right, one turn left.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when buses arrive to drop students off or pick them up, do they make a left from Northern Lights and head south on Sapala and then come in that first entrance on the north?
Yes, they do. I could show you.
Mm-hmm.
Come in here, wrap around there. So the buses stacked there along the sidewalk.
Okay. And so traffic, I know that you're going to resolve this with the traffic department coming onto the right-of-way. I just was seeing conflicts with 2 lanes of traffic of vehicles coming out, buses coming in, people trying to leave to go to work on Sapala. It just seems kind of congested in that area.
Yeah, and I can address that too, and that concern. There's not a whole lot of buses in terms of traffic with the school. The existing bus traffic is 2 full-size buses, and then they have 5 private small buses like Taekwondo type, Boys and Girls Club type buses, small vans.
Off-peak, not at the drop. Okay.
Exactly.
Okay. That's it. Thank you.
Commissioner Miller?
Yes, thank you. Had a question regarding the snow storage, specifically by the bus drop-off and staff parking area. In the little green space between Sapala and the parking area, you have a rain garden. It also indicates that you have snow storage there as well.
Can you please clarify which sheet you're looking at?
Sorry, C200.
Yeah. So we've had discussions on this matter, and what we're planning on doing is, if you look on where the bus loop is off Sapala Drive, to the south of there's a large open area. That's going to be our snow storage area. We're going to be moving that snow storage area from where it's currently shown down to that location.
Okay, so that's already in the plans. We don't need to put a condition to do that?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Leonetti?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was just going to chime in. I don't really have any questions, just comments that the staff of the packet was really well written and easy to read and seemed to flow nicely, and good job. Thanks.
Do we have any more questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now we move on with public testimony. Do we have any representatives or groups who wish to testify? Any individuals? Thank you. I guess, will the petitioner want to use his rebuttal time? 3 minutes? It's 4 minutes? 4 minutes, 5 seconds, actually.
We don't see any need to use that rebuttal time unless there's additional questions.
Okay, thank you. Any additional comments? No? Okay, I guess we are ready to vote. I'm ready to close the public hearing, and now we can move. Can I get a motion to approve the case? I have a motion by Commissioner Rem, and I need a second. A second by Commissioner Winchester. Commissioner Rem, would you like to state your motion?
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you. I would like to make a motion to approve case 2015-0095, major site plan review for the Tourniquet Elementary School renewal, with the following conditions. Conditions 1 through 5 on page 8 of the staff packet. Strike condition 6 and retain condition 7.
Would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes, I agree with Commissioner Leonetti. This was a really well put together packet. Appreciate all of the information that you provided in a clear, concise manner to help us with our review. And I'm always for elementary schools getting upgraded. Born and raised here, they need it. So thank you.
Commissioner Winchester, would you like to speak to your motion?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I likewise am going to support the motion and would also like to commend the petitioner. It's a great packet. It was easy to understand and just well put together. And that particular school certainly needs an upgrade. Would like to find a few findings of fact. Basically, it meets it's consistent with the subdivision. Site plan complies with all the applicable development design standards set forth in Title 21. Did a great job on the landscaping, all the minimum distances, vehicle pedestrian access. Again, a great job of reworking what is really a very old site and bringing it together with the drop-off and the specific use of the site as a Russian immersion program. I'm sure you get a lot of drop-off, and that's always hard to accomplish on our school sites. And you guys did a magnificent job and handling the bus and certainly the children walking to the site. I commend some of the access that you prepared. Further, it seems to meet all the transportation connectivity issues. You've really looked at every particular, and that's one of the issues that I think with elementary schools is really looking at existing traffic, not just kind of where things happen to be, and you've done some really good study work on that. And thank you very much for presenting that. Landscaping and screening and fences, I think all those things. The site plan addresses significant adverse impacts that this site brought to this particular use, and you've resolved those really well. Again, deals with a comprehensive plan, certainly northern climate issues. Great job. So thanks for all that you've done. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any additional comments? No? Can we start voting? The motion has passed. We're moving forward with recommendations 1 through 5. We are deleting recommendation number 6, and we're retaining condition number 7. Thank you. Do we have any staff report? Commissioner Leonetti?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was just going to mention to the Commission that I'm on one of the 1% for Art committees, and I don't know if I need to report back, but the first meeting is this Friday. So.
Thank you. Any additional comments? Can I get a motion to adjourn the meeting? Oh. Okay. This is the last meeting for Monica Emerton, and I think we are very sad. But thank you for all your hard work. And we're going to miss you. I don't know if anyone wants to say something else. No?
I'll chime in. No, I think you provided great leadership when you were chair, and I appreciate that. And I'm sad to see you not renew, but if there's any way that you would reconsider, then that would be good to do, because I think you provide good leadership. Thanks.
Well, I guess I got a motion to adjourn by Commissioner Rem and a second by Commissioner Miller. Now we get to go home.